Good evening, Battle Creek, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Our View, the show that takes into consideration families' voices in Battle Creek, Michigan, who exist in poverty and have a view of policies and systems and things in Battle Creek, Michigan. Joining us today is Michaela Garza, Employment Specialist for Goodwill Industries of South Central Michigan, and of course, our famous work experience trainer and administrative assistant, Kayla Johnson. So thanks for joining us, Michaela.
Thanks for having me.
So we've been talking a lot always about poverty, of course. That's what this show is about, is our view from poverty. But recently we've been taking a deeper dive into the gender difference because poverty looks different for men than it does for women. And we've been asking the tougher questions of why and what should that mean to Women's Co-op as a whole. When we pulled stats for this, 16.7% of the population in Battle Creek live below the poverty level, which is pretty high when you consider the national average is 12.8. You're talking about 21,000 people in Battle Creek living at or below poverty level. And the largest demographic are females, 25 to 34.
Yeah.
So that's childbearing ages. That's the mamas. That's the mamas that we're talking about.
Absolutely, it is.
And so when we look at it from our view in the population that we're serving, we go to the immediate things. Well, of course it's harder. Mom is the one that has the kids in tow. Mom's the one that's dragging the family through poverty. When, maybe dad is in poverty too, but it's easier for him because he doesn't have these kids in tow. This whole nother set of responsibilities. And I'm not trying to diss fathers out there because I know there are amazing ones out there. Not every father doesn't pay his child support. Not every father doesn't support. But from what we see, folks, from Women's Co-op, is there is a high number of women who don't have fathers involved. They oftentimes don't even have the family support that they need to bring the resources to the table to get out of poverty.
Right.
And, we know that poverty is hard, but to get out of poverty, 2 incomes is easier than 1.
Absolutely.
Right? And if she doesn't have the time to go back and get the training and education necessary to climb up the career ladder, what are you experiencing as you're trying to help women through Goodwill Industries?
What I've seen or noticed a lot of times is women dealing with absent fathers, and child care is the biggest issue. No one to watch their children, or no support, or they have support but it's limited support. So just having a support system and child care and maybe even transportation.
Yeah, because let's be clear about something. If you're in a situation where you have transportation and a decent income and can afford daycare, which women in poverty can afford it because there are supplements to pay for daycare and Head Start. But the issue is, what if I have a child in Head Start, I have a baby in daycare, and I have a child in school, and I have no transportation, and my shift starts at 7 in the morning? Is it doable, ladies?
No.
No, it's not. No.
Because am I going to get on the bus and take these 3 different kids to 3 different locations? Like, these are real challenges. So I know that we blanket it a lot of times and we say daycare is the issue, but it's not just obtaining daycare.
It's not.
Because you can obtain daycare. It's all of the chaos around trying to get that to plan out in your life and make it doable.
Absolutely. And I've seen that as well. Daycare is the issue. But really it's, like you said, not having that transportation or not having a support system or someone to help you, because you have to get them to 3 different schools, or you have to get them to child care, and you don't have money to pay someone to take you to your appointments or drop your kids off or whatever may be the case. So it's not only about child care. That is one of the big issues, but like you said, there are supplements, and a lot of our women in the community are able to access that. But when you have no transportation, or you work out in the fort, for example, you don't have a way to get out there at 5 o'clock in the morning because buses don't run. We don't have taxi cabs.
Right.
I don't believe Ubers are here. The drive or share drive or drive shares, or whatever they're called, they're not always available.
Limited. Yeah, it's very, very limited.
Yes.
God bless Kingdom Builders down in our neighborhood, do some stuff with transportation, but they're not going to get the whole city of Battle Creek where they need
Absolutely.
to be. But they sure are trying. So thank you, Kingdom Builders. We appreciate you. I think for me too, it's just a matter of you can list these barriers, you can list these issues, but the thing that goes with that is the stress and the emotional health and the mental
Absolutely.
health of it. Like how many days, months, years can you go on with that struggle before you just give up? You know, I remember being younger with my children, and a thing that I would hear often is, well, it's just so much easier for people to do welfare. Yeah, it is. It ain't a gravy living,
Right.
but it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think people understand how deep and wide that statement really is, right?
I don't know. I think just by the population we've worked with or we work with, in my own experience in life, hearing that, like, it's so easy to be on welfare. It is not. And, like, sure, like, those supplements are great, but, like, the stress that it takes to get welfare, because it's not something that's just handed to you either. You also have to work for welfare.
Yes.
And it's not the same 8 to 5, you know, Monday through, well, it can be, definitely, especially if you have all the kids in tow. No transportation is like probably 3 full-time jobs for one person to do a week, to get to all the different agencies, to get to the paperwork, to get to the money, to get to the schools while you're trying to get in between these places, and the doctors to make sure they can go to the schools. Like, it's insane. Like, for somebody to actually think that,
It's easier.
yeah, is wild, because it's definitely not easier.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people are aware that you actually have to work for your cash assistance now. Like, it is
Yeah.
working. You have to work
Yeah.
20 hours a week. It's volunteer community service, but you have to do it in order to be able to even receive your cash assistance.
Absolutely. And not only that, like there's job search, there's requirements that you have to follow. The government has strict,
And now they're
guess-
going to do that with food stamps as well. Like that's in the new bill that they're trying to pass, is that families would also have to do community service to receive food stamps.
Yep.
Which
And
is
I'm wondering
frustrating.
how
That
many
is frustrating.
families that's going to opt out, right?
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Well, I think it's frustrating on both sides, in all fairness. I think it's frustrating to some of us that you can receive food stamps and not want to do things to better your life. And so
Right.
there has to be some accountability at some level. And, you know, somewhere there's a Republican in me that agrees with that. But there's also a Democrat in me and a softer person in me who understands what that struggle looks like to have to do that.
Absolutely. You know, like Kayla was saying, the stress of mothers, or maybe even single fathers, but mothers, like you said, have the kids in tow all the time. There was one point in my life where I was a 2-family income. My husband was there. We were a solid family. When I didn't have enough money coming in, he was there, you know, with his check. And then recently that changed, and I became a single mother, and then I had to start worrying about everything. And it is very stressful, and it is hard to be on welfare, public assistance, because there are requirements, there are things you have to do. And unfortunately, that's just the way things are.
And sometimes, I mean, with our population, there's even a lack of understanding or knowledge of what reviews are and what you're supposed to send in and
Yeah.
how to obtain that paperwork. We have folks that are in training programs with us, as you know, and we don't give them pay stubs because these are training stipends.
Yes.
And we 1099 them at the end of the year. And so we have DHS workers that are saying, well, that's no good because you can't prove the income. Well, technically, it's not income; it's a training stipend. This is
Right.
this is for 6 weeks in time.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating to get through these systems too. But again, I mean, we understand why these things have to be in place in the system, but they're also frustrating
Absolutely.
for our women. You know, another thing that I found really kind of astounding, and I'm a woman and I run a women's organization and I really just should know this stuff and should be advocating for it widely, but when I was researching for this show, because here's another thing that I thought was really ironic. We have all these things in Battle Creek, right, to serve all this stuff. But myself and Dr. Preston Hicks, who is your boss, was searching for an expert who could come on the show and talk about gender equity as it applied to Michigan and, you know, specifically our county, our city. And there's not. Like, we have all these amazing colleges, and we couldn't find somebody who was focused on that gender equity, right? And so as I'm researching data for this, one of the things that popped out at me is that in 2023, we're still only making 77 cents to a man's dollar.
Yep, I saw that too when I was looking at numbers.
What does that
They
say to
still
you?
make more than women. They do.
And here we are saying, hey, women trod through poverty, dragging families. It's not easy for them to camp on someone's couch. They have babies in tow. It's not, you know, it's harder for them. And then we say, but you can only have 70 cents on a dollar to our dollar.
Yes.
Why?
I don't
You
know.
have to tell
but
us
that
because
is-
you're the employment
That's
specialist.
a great injustice. I don't know. As I was doing research as well, I saw that one of the statistics was that women are more educated more than men, and we still make below what they make financially, money-wise.
Does it disturb us a little bit to know that in our little town of Battle Creek, we know this to be true because I found the statistics. It was as easy as a couple hits on Google.
Yeah.
At a state level, we know this because it was Michigan data that I pulled off
Yep.
of Data USA. At a national level, we know this to be true. Why? Why are we not?
I think it's a part of history that's still not quite resolved. I think that the men going to war, going to work, the woman stays home, takes care of the children in the home. And I think a large part of that is still true because, like, in poverty, how a man may be able to walk up to a job site and help roofing for a day or painting for a day, under the table get cashed out and just start making money in those ways, that's not a woman's position, right? Women don't roof and paint. They go sit in a secretary's office, which you have to have a degree for, so they go to school.
Yep. And I think that's where the education part comes from. You know, like, we have to be educated to gain employment most times. If we want, like you said, an office job or something like that, we have to make ourselves marketable. And it's not fair, and I think it does go back in history, and I think our society is set up that way. We're set up on that type of lifestyle. But we've come very far from that
Right.
to where we are now.
But we still have systems that value and haven't necessarily, like Kayla said, gotten away from
Yeah,
those things.
absolutely. They are still there.
I just think that it behooves me a little bit, I hope that's the right word, but that, like Kayla said, like, it's just so much easier. And I know we're talking about the norm, there are exceptions, but women can't just go out and earn in those ways or take those types of positions. But let's talk about something for a minute as an employment specialist perspective. We do a high number of manufacturing jobs in our area. Women's Co-op even helps to place folks in manufacturing positions. Do you think it's easier for a man to obtain those positions as a woman, or do you think we're pretty much gender equity there?
Through my programs, I've dealt with mostly females, women, and I've had a few of them come in and say, I've applied at these temp services, I'm not getting hired. They told me I was going to have a job, I still don't have a job. And then there's those few individuals that come in that are men, and they say, oh, I applied at a temp service and I'll have a position by the end of the week. So I feel like, yes, it can be still, it is still there, I think. And I think a lot of times when people look at applications or resumes, reason of leaving, or when you do interviews and they ask you why you left, and a lot of times it's like, you don't have transportation or you don't have child care. I think those things impact
Do you think that employers actually think, oh, this is a woman, she's got a couple kids, she's going to have daycare issues, she's going to struggle. I'd rather have the guy over here that isn't going to struggle with any of that.
I would like to say no. but I don't know how individuals think when they are hiring other people. But I could see that it could be a stereotype and people could feed off of that like anything else.
What
And
do
I
you think,
wonder
Kayla?
too, like we were talking about food stamps putting community service in place and the pros and cons of that. I think there's definitely, and the gender equity. I think there's definitely like a lot of those old systems that are coming along. Maybe we're not all the way there yet. I think a lot of things are still blanketed, like nobody chooses to have food stamps. There's reasons for these things.
Right.
And that's, so like implementing the community service like is good, but at the same time, like it's not serving the actual emotional issue or whatever's happening inside. So I do wonder, like systems like those, I feel like have a really good chance of coming along eventually. But I just wonder how women will be living in poverty in 20 years from now. How much will that change, I guess, because not only is it what we see every day, but it's also not that men don't have a biological link to their young or their families, but I feel like women are just very biologically wired to their children, and in those ways I just don't know how much it will change for me coming in looking to be hired with you knowing that I have babies and I need to get them places and so on and so forth. I just don't know how much that view will really change even with things moving forward.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you, Michaela, that no, we can't say for certain that employers think that way and that there
Right.
is that bias. But I think the three of us kind of know there is.
Yes.
And it makes kind of sense for there to be, if you're looking for the best applicant, you really don't want the mother who's going to have all these attached issues
Yes.
when you perceive that a man may not, even if he is in a family situation. Most people attribute those barriers to women.
Absolutely.
Look at us calling children barriers. We're terrible today. We are absolutely terrible. But it is the thing.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing that I want to take away from today is where we always go, what is Battle Creek doing about this? And it just appears to me that I couldn't find anything. And that doesn't mean that you're not out there and that you're not doing something. It's just we didn't find it. And I feel as a woman, and especially a woman who leads a woman's organization, yes, we serve the entire family and we serve men too, but we are the women's co-op. I feel like we should be concerned about that.
Yes. Absolutely.
That there
because-
should be something in Battle Creek that's serving this, right?
Yes, because we have like you said, you gave the statistics. We have an alarming amount of individuals, women, children that are living in poverty. And yes, we do have, I feel like there are good organizations in place trying to make a difference, but we do need to see more in our community. We need to help more,
Or somebody who's specifically working on the stuff we're talking about today, like
Yeah.
bringing opportunity to women in poverty, specifically women.
Yes.
That they're taking into consideration what they're carrying with them. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a no-brainer that we should be focused on this.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. I feel like we could use so many more resources. In
Do
Battle
you
Creek.
think that we're focused on it at a state or a national level? Because I mean, there are some things. I'm not saying there's not anything out there that's working on gender equity, because there is. But it isn't something that popped up on Google for me.
I don't think that it's something that can in a way that would work.
What do you mean?
In my brain, we talk about blankets, somebody having depression and taking medication. Not that that's wrong at all. I'm just saying, but getting down to, again, what's inside that's causing whatever issue barrier it is. So I think I'm going to boast a little bit about co-op. I think that we do a really good job actually with that, with our women, because it's not like, yes, it would definitely be super helpful if there were, people working on these direct things and having like classes or courses or programs that the women could attend. But I think I've seen that you can have opportunities for folks, but them not be able to access them just because they're there. And I think in those
Take
ways,
advantage of them, right?
yeah, because it's not there for them to be, like, the opportunity is, yes, here, I could hold it, I could touch it, but it's not in here for me to
Internally,
do
yeah.
it. And I think that's where Co-op does a really, really good job with, and even if it's, we don't serve the entire Calhoun County and all of the women, but all of the women we come across, like, I think we do a really good job loving them and, like, coming together and listening to each other and doing a really good job there.
And bringing a collective voice in arenas like this show, because I agree, if I am one of them women struggling in that way, yes, I care about the differences. I care about the inequalities. But can I afford to do something when I'm barely scraping by doing what I have to do just to live? So even if I care, doesn't necessarily mean I can be involved. But if I belong to a network like Co-op where they're trying to collect these voices and trying to be a collective voice for these barriers, I think that Co-op does make a difference in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I think you guys have a great organization over there, and you help
Thank you.
many people.
I
I've
think
only
your
heard.
Boston organization is great too.
Thanks. I've only heard good things about women's co-ops, so I'm glad you guys are around here to help individuals who need that. It's really good support.
Is it not scary to you, though, that there's not an entity who is really focused in our area on gender equality?
I feel like that is scary because who speaks for us?
Right.
Who speaks for us? Who stands up for that battle and says, this is not okay? Why are women still making less? Why are there not, more opportunities for women to grow, or whatever the case may be? That is mind-boggling to me.
I mean, even in the consortium that we all belong to for workforce development, I think that we're really good at seeing individuals, group, and face. But I don't think that we're even really focused on these differences that we're talking about today. I mean, we're focused on putting people to work and giving them opportunities and getting them on career paths that are meaningful, where they can
Absolutely.
make enough money to not have to raise their families in poverty, and that they can have good health insurance and, all the things that everybody who works and lives should be entitled to. But I don't think that we're looking at this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. I don't think we are either. I think, like you said, we're driven to help them better themselves, help them gain employment, help them get the resources that are available for them. And we don't focus on what they're making or the price tag or any of that.
Or that we
focus
sent
on
5 people to the factory and the 2 guys got hired, but not the 3 girls.
women.
Right?
Yeah, we're just like, oh no, we'll try again, or we'll look for somewhere else, or whatever the case may be. We always try to encourage them, right? But we don't look at that. I can say we do. Well, I don't look at that. I'm just like, okay, well, we'll try another place. We'll see what we can get. So at that point, my goal is to just help them gain employment and get out of that poverty and get off the system and be able to live an easier life, not as easy as it would be, obviously, if you had 2 incomes, but easier because you don't have to worry about welfare, like you said, documentation or whatever it requires.
Or
go
that
to
you have a
work and-
community that fully understands your struggle and is backing
Yes.
you in the ways that you need to be backed
Yep.
because you're not supported by that partner.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did think that Battle Creek got a good grade for was that when I began to look at the leadership in our community, it was pretty equitable between men and women.
Well, that's good.
Like, we have women leaders in our community amongst our businesses, and I'm not thoroughly convinced that all the businesses are, equal. But as far as leadership and things across the community, there are quite a few powerful women in our community leading things.
Well, that's great.
So that was good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So now we need to round them up at a table and go, hey,
Yes.
there's a whole bunch of women down here on this bottom ring. They're only making 77 cents to a man's dollar.
How can we get
And we
this
need you to rise up with us and worry about that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if we had, like I said, someone to speak for us, for those individuals who make less, like this is what we deserve. We work just as hard as anyone else, and I think it's a good start. Maybe we should get them at a table, right?
I do. I love this start. I think the hardest part about like conversations like these is there's so many thoughts,
Yes.
so many opinions, so many perceptions, so many ideas, and that sort of thing. Whereas I think for a long time, women weren't asked to think or speak. So having those women, I think, would be like really like powerful to
Absolutely.
like lead us, you know. But I think it is hard because for so long, you know, men have been breadwinners and you know, war veterans and things like that. So they have all this history to back them up. Like men can do this, men do this, they've done this, they got this, they earned that dollar. You guys are just starting.
Yeah.
Here's your 77 cents. Be quiet. And it's not that way anymore. And we need more facts.
What about in factories though, Michaela? Like if you go get a job at, let's say, Denso Manufacturing or give me another one.
Magna?
This is your word, Magna. Man and woman is going to make the same hourly rate, right?
Normally, yes. Yeah.
Is it when we get into these leadership positions
I
that there's
would
going to be a
say-
difference? Like, are we really experiencing this difference locally too?
I would say possibly, but in factories there are men and women. But I will honestly say that in the organizations that I've been employed by, most all women who are most all employees are women. Most of them. I used to work in education. Early childhood education. I think maybe 2 men came through there. So like women are working, yes, but it's almost like the employment that we gain has a lower wage or the number isn't as high.
What's available to us? Because it's
Yes.
kind of what you said. The iron workers, the plumbers, the
Painters,
this is still a male-dominated world.
yes. Yep, I feel like it is.
Well, then we just need to get our troops together and start dominating.
Yes, we are. No, we should.
This is a new plan. See, we're going to make the committee that gets the women into these other fields and makes them painters and carpenters and plumbers and electricians. And then we'll get them women leaders together that are powerhouses in Battle Creek. And they can develop a committee that helps raise up that voice. And we're going to right the world.
Okay.
Right.
I also think having those individuals would be great because it will show our young ladies or even those single mothers that don't have that assistance, like women can do this. I think that's important.
I think it's important for women to cleave together and understand each other's plight because, like the origins of co-op, when I started that, I really felt alone. And it was that tribe of women that surrounded me for the last 20 years that let me know that we're not alone.
Right.
We have each other. We just have to remember that we have each other.
Absolutely.
But that's all the time we have for this evening. Thank you for joining us, Battle Creek. We love to hear your thoughts and opinions about this stuff. So contact information is on the screen. If you go to our website, there's email contact information for our staff. Michaela, you're easy to reach at Goodwill Industries. Contact information there.
Yeah.
Please reach out to us. Let's keep the discussion going. And if you are one of those powerful women in our community, we want to talk to you. Michaela and I and Kayla, we want to talk to you.
Want to hear you.
That's right. Good night, Battle Creek.
Good night.